So you want to make money off the content that you're putting out, but you don't really know where to start. How do you monetize the content that you're doing? Because maybe you don't have 10,000 subscribers on YouTube and you're running pre-roll and mid-roll ads and stuff like that. There are solutions and answer to this without having to have thousands or hundreds of thousands of followers or subscribers. So there are actually multiple ways to be able to start monetizing your content immediately. Now, I know a lot of you may be getting into content, maybe you started your YouTube channel or your podcast because you heard a lot of people can make money on this. And I'm going to really dive deep into this and tell you, do not focus on that. That is not the focal point for you to be able to do videos on YouTube or start a podcast or grow an Instagram following. It should not be immediately to try to monetize what you're doing in that form. Now, in that scenario as well is to be able to monetize off of your stuff, which is number one, your items, your products, your services. That is the best way to be able to monetize what you're putting out. So take, for instance, you do have a YouTube channel or you do have a podcast. Talk about the products or the services that you have on those pieces of content. So if you have a podcast, maybe it's a good idea, instead of starting it off with ads from another company, put an ad in there for your product or your service, and then put a mid-roll ad in there for another product that you have. And same thing for YouTube. Talk about those things. That is the best way to be able to monetize what you're putting out in any way, shape, or form. Number two is to get sponsors. Now, you don't have to have hundreds of thousands of followers in order to get sponsors in any type of content you're doing. Let me give you a prime example. My book, the REI Marketing book. This is a book that I actually pulled from my podcast, and I have a whole video on how I created an entire book, 200-page book out of a podcast, so make sure you go check that out. But what I actually did was I actually sold ad space inside of this book. Now, this book is called the REI Marketing book. Obviously, it's for real estate investors to be able to amp up their marketing, and if you want to go get that book, down in the description below is where you can find that link, the reimarketingbook.com. But what I did was I actually sold ad space to relevant service providers that could service real estate investors in some way, shape, or form. So this ad specifically is from Simple CFO, my good buddy David Richter, and he implements Profit First for real estate investors. And I actually sold about 5 other ads inside of this book for $1,000 a piece. So for this book, I'm using it as a lead hook and a marketing tool for me, and it's still content, but I sold ad space to people that have relevant services inside of this. So I actually made about $7 grand just on ad space, putting people back into this book and getting in front of an audience. So again, right now, I only have about 700 orders on this book. So not thousands and thousands of people that have this book, but people are willing to pay for ad space to get into a relevant piece of content like this, which is where, if you have a podcast or YouTube channel, you can always get ad sponsors. Now, a lot of people think that you actually have to have 40,000+ downloads a month on a podcast in order to get any kind of ad sponsors on there, and that's just not true. I have worked with clients that have maybe even 5,000 to 10,000 downloads a month, and maybe you're just charging less for an ad sponsor to get on there. But there are, services or products out there that are willing to sponsor a podcast or a YouTube channel or even a social media following just to get a post out there and get in front of people that are in a relevant audience. And that's the key to sponsors, is making sure that if you get a sponsor that's on a piece of content, so whether that's an Instagram post, whether that's a book, whether that's a podcast or a YouTube channel, make sure that those sponsors are relevant to your demographic, because if they're not, then it's gonna be very off-putting. It's not gonna make sense to your viewers, and it's just ultimately going to deter a lot of people from what you're putting out. And a little tip for you is, if you're gonna get an ad sponsor on there, there's a lot of content out there from people that actually have ad sponsors on what they're doing, and they'll tell you, like, here's how to structure your ad sponsors. You're gonna get X amount of dollars for X amount of downloads per month on a podcast episode or whatever. Follow those things. But the key here is to make sure that you're charging that, but also get an affiliate link with those ad sponsors. So every single person that's in this book, I actually have an affiliate with. And so when somebody reads this book, they look at this ad sponsor, they're gonna go to the website, the call to action that's in this ad. It has a link specific to my affiliate, and I get a kickback every single time somebody buys from one of these ads. And that's another way that you can monetize what you got going on. Affiliates. So you could have affiliates with 1 subscriber on YouTube. You could have affiliates with 5 followers on Instagram. It doesn't matter. Loading up affiliates is a really good and easy way to be able to get relevant service providers to give you their links and then put those in front of your target audience so that they'll click on it, purchase that product or service from this service provider, and then you get a kickback from that. And you can do that with any amount of followers, any amount of an audience, and it's just a really easy and great way to be able to do that. And last but not least is your merch or your products that you have. Obviously, I've already talked about products and services, so this can kind of tie back into that. But if you have merch or if you have anything that you can put back into your target demographic, like for instance, this book, this is technically a merch for my company. It's $4.95 for the book. And so I'm gonna give this to people if they pay for it and buy it. Obviously there's a lot of forms of monetization inside of this book, but this is a form of monetization. It's a physical item that somebody can purchase, and I promote that from the content that I put out on, say, my YouTube channel, my podcast, or even Instagram and Facebook. Now, I'm not telling you to go start your own, t-shirt company or something like that. Make sure it is relevant and makes sense for you to be able to do that. That's just another option to roll with it. So forms of monetization: your products and services, priority, affiliates, ads and sponsors, and then even merch. Those are all ways that you could do that. And then obviously, if you get into the range of being able to monetize your videos on YouTube, that is definitely a really good ad revenue for you to be able to bring some money in the content that you're putting out when you get to that level. So hopefully this video brought you some value and gave you some good direction on monetization. Again, I want to encourage you, do not focus on this from the start. Do not try to make sure that you're putting content out because you're gonna make money on that. That is not the motive. Make sure that you're pushing your products, your services, and that's the best way to monetize, and be focused on that. Forget about everything else and then implement as you go along and you grow your content and your audiences. So thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, make sure you give this video a big like. If it brought you some value, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and then also check out the description down below. Tons of links on how to connect with me, including follow me on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and then booking a 1-hour consultation call with yours truly, Josh Culler, down in the description below. Check all of those out. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. See you later.